Hi, welcome to Cinematic Bridges. I'm your host, Evan, and with me today is my co-host, Bofeng.
Hi everyone!
And today we are here to talk about Nomadland, a film about being a nomad on the land. It follows Fern, an elderly woman who, after losing her home and job due to the 2008 financial crisis, travels the American West in her van. Along the way, she meets and interacts with fellow travelers, or nomads as they call themselves. It is a distinctly American film, all about rugged individualism as an idiosyncratic loner struggles with adversity. At the same time, it goes against the typical Hollywood grain by focusing on the small left-behind characters of American society, particularly older people in the 50s and 60s, who have lost their place in general domestic society and have found a new one for themselves, as nomads. Lacking a clear narrative, the film is a quiet character study of a woman who finds a life for herself as well, a nomad. Gorgeous to look at, with numerous beautiful pans over the sparse American landscape, the film evokes the westerns of classic Hollywood. In many ways, it is a western, besides a shared locale. Fern is the classic western drifter, wandering the nomadic plains, and her van is a trusty horse, which she names Vanguard, and that is adorable.
The start of the movie is more like an escape from the deal with death, and the tone of the movie is filled with destructive emotions and feelings. You thought it would be another movie simply criticizing the current situation of Americans or a voyeuristic tale of the hard life of marginalized people. But as the travel continues, something light and joyful starts to flow. With all the wonderful and amazing experiences we went through with the main character, we gradually realize that this Nomadland is not a passive escape, but a lighthouse for all people who have the same sufferings. I'm not homeless, but houseless. Partner died with no children, no stable income, and having to work manual labor in almost the pension age. For anyone living in the same situation, they would definitely have the right to plain life and passionately rail against the cruelty of society. We do expect to see that from Fern and from the movie, allowing us to enjoy in the pleasure of righteous anger. In today's life, externalizing the reasons for pain from life is an essential way to keep ourselves mentally stable, and there is a lot of art that undertakes this role. That's what makes Nomadland special. Take the pen and stop seeing ourselves as victims and begging for attention and aid. In the shop, when an acquaintance asked about where Fern lived, she rejected the help and replies that she is just houseless rather than homeless. Refusing to victimize ourselves helps Fern become stronger.
That's not to say that Nomadland glorifies Fern's life. The film makes clear that not only does Fern face many risks, both financial and physical, including one time having to seek shelter during a snowstorm to avoid freezing to death, but that the life of a nomad means that she is unable to keep any roots. A short, poignant moment is when Fern briefly takes ownership of her dog, but after realizing she cannot take care of it, she leaves the dog alone, gives it a quick pat, and walks off. She is free, but she is also, more often than not, alone. There is a frailty in the nomad lifestyle, where you are forced to rely on short-term casual work such as an Amazon warehouse, and there are people constantly coming and going into your life. They come, and then they leave, but then they come back, down the road, but not always. The film's anchor is the performance of Frances McDormand as Fern. McDormand, well known for playing strong, resilient women with tender hearts, is simply wonderful as Fern. You see her, and you understand that she has this resolute strength to survive and even thrive in this life that she has created for herself. You instantly recognize that she is someone who will take no shit, and yet she is also kind and gentle to those that she cares for. Aside from McDormand and actor David Strathairn as a fellow nomad, the cast is filled with non-actors, many of them real-life nomads playing themselves. This is one of the film's greatest strengths, as alongside giving the film a sense of verisimilitude, they give stand-up performances full of tender emotion and grace. The director Chloe Zhao, known for creating films that cover the forgotten souls of the American West, has achieved great recognition for Nomadland. She has caused global headlines by, alongside Nomadland winning the Oscar for Best Film, she has become the first Asian woman to win the Oscar for Best Director. Chloe Zhao is an interesting figure to helm such films about lower-class, rural Americans, not just because she is a Chinese woman, but more importantly, she comes from a very wealthy background. Born Zhao Ting in Beijing, Zhao's father was a successful manager of a steel company, and her stepmother, Song Dan Dan, is an extremely famous Chinese actress. Her wealthy family enabled Zhao to attend a prestigious boarding school in London as a teenager and go on to attend university in America. This does raise questions about how Zhao presents these stories of nomads, that perhaps it is too far removed from her own somewhat cushy background for her to portray accurately. It is a fair criticism. Cinema has a long, unfortunate history of telling stories about people that are made by people who differ from them in class, race, gender, or sexuality, meaning that the end project can sometimes misrepresent or simply does not comprehend the full scope of its subject matter. I don't think Nomadland is one of those films. Zhao has done her due diligence and has explored and researched what life is like for marginalized communities out in the American West. The film displays an understanding of the dire situations that put people like Fern into a life of nomidity. But more importantly, it shows empathy and respect. It is more than a documentation of life as an American nomad, a vicarious way for people to live out this idiosyncratic life, and at the same time it is far from a simple celebration. But what is most important, what truly explains Zhao's keen eye for cinema and appreciation of the American West? The fact that she is a massive nerd. Seriously, she has gone on record that as a teenager she drew manga and wrote fanfiction, and she has a pet chicken. Now the fact that her next film is The Eternals, the big Marvel space opera epic starring Angelina Jolie, the big dude from Train to Busan, and both Kings of the North, starts to make a lot more sense. Nomadland has been heralded as a distinctly American story, and rightfully so. Zhao has gone on record as saying that this type of lifestyle can really only exist in the United States. This is thanks to the country's systems of highways. However, for one woman outside of the US, this lifestyle does indeed exist. In fact, it exists in Zhao's homeland of China.
Su Min, a 56-year-old woman who described her old life as living for others, spent 30 years raising her daughter and taking care of a husband who would often verbally abuse her. In interviews with Chinese media, she stated that suffered from depression for a long time, becoming heavily dependent on medicine to keep herself emotionally stable. On a winter afternoon in 2019, she accidentally opened a link online about how to do a road trip. This idea inspired her and made her think, is that possible for her to do a road trip just by herself? However, after looking at her finances, she realized she only had 2,000 yuan per month via her pension, which is equal to 400 Australian dollars, and only a small amount of savings, far from enough to achieve her dream. So she made a long-term plan to achieve this dream, First, she learned how to make videos online by creating cooking clips and recipe videos. Second, she divided the plan of purchasing the essentials for the trip. Each month, she just collected a few pieces of equipment for her big dream and kept doing this for an entire year. To avoid confrontation with her husband, she did all this project secretly, without any family members aware of her plans. After sending her grandson to kindergarten, she could finally take a breath in life. At that moment, she made a great announcement to her family. I'm going to travel by myself. As usual, her husband got very sarcastic about her plan and mocked her. But this time, Su Min did not give a shit. She bravely left her home and took her Volkswagen Polo down the road, just like Fern and Vanguard. With more people getting to know her story, a lot of women who have been repressed by family duties stand out to support her. Now, she has traveled to most of the provinces of China and has made many beautiful videos to share with netizens. Today, many big companies have invited her to make commercials for them, and Su Min has become famous and financially independent. More importantly, a lot of women in China got encouraged by her story. In her recent commercial, Su Min said, "In my life, I folded clothes for this family 73,219 times. Now, I only pack for myself." Su is still on the road and lives her life in her car, becoming a nomad.
Life is a journey where each person has their own unique difficulties. Like Fern or Sumin, they may live in different countries and face different social issues, but the key way to persevere against these issues is the same: to love, to move on, and to find serenity in the nomadic life. See you on the road, my friends.